That's the, that's the 122.
Hey, how are you doing, Mr. Planner?
That was for the meeting before last meeting.
Are you Shani?
Hey, good. Yourself?
Let me know if I missed anything.
No, it's good. She just pointed out that.
No,
I
we
wasn't
did
here
not.
last meeting. This is the-
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right.
We had traffic
No,
so
you
much.
guys, you missed, what all was on the last one?
Jordan
I
and
think-
the
Well,
Good,
back to my minutes.
Was he a state law?
What kind of traffic?
Well,
They can kind of catch up with you. There's always
Eric, were you saying that the
yeah,
commission is the
Well,
the
so
55 hour
the-
meeting?
Yeah,
I guess the.
yeah, city
campus
council
shuts
did,
down.
and
Is there
I don't know,
no
they just-
during that week?
I thought
Was
they would
spring
be a little
break?
bit more clear, because several times they had
Was he
to
on
for it, and
campus?
they went through
No,
that
no, she's
application
at the
for it.
district hall.
But every time we received
no,
revised plans, everything was the
The
same,
whole,
so.
all the campus shut down and all the
What are you
administration.
gonna do, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's the right time, you know.
Yes, exactly.
So I just,
Mrs. Mitchell,
It's for it.
that's,
Five.
here you are, fine. You know, if the rest are in
Guess you
here.
want to stop there?
Yeah, you know, it's just always there. I just share it with whoever.
It's always fine.
It's just always there.
and we got 5.
Great, perfect, thank you.
That's gonna be.
Great.
Let's go.
Well,
Mark, do you have anything in place?
7 o'clock, so finish the time.
Load that, I mean, you know,
I'll call the meeting to order for Monday, March 18th. First agenda item is approval of minutes for 2/18, 2019. Does everyone get a chance to look at the minutes for the 2/18 meeting? If so, can I get a motion for approval?
I make a motion for approval.
I seconded.
Great. I have a motion for approval, a second. All in favor? Let's get a unanimous vote.
Real quick, I just want to say that sometimes the video isn't always rolling. So I could recognize you saying second, but I'm saying that because I record over there. So whenever a second is made, I guess there's.
You want me to say the names?
Yes,
Okay, gotcha.
yes, thank you. Sometimes it's,
We need to introduce here, just for the record.
yes, Mr. Sandler is absent, Mr. Okafor, Mr. Demko.
Mr. Sandler, just.
Oh, here's Mr. Sandler. And Ms. Burton is absent.
Motion by Ms. Daniels, second by Ms. Mitchell, approved unanimously 5-0. Item number 2, hold a public hearing to consider the enacted fund request by Seth Kelly, PE Engineering, to approve a replat of the Sunnyvale School Addition at or about 216 North Collins Road, southeast corner of Hounsel Road and North Collins Road.
Yes.
Staff?
The applicant is requesting approval of a replat for Sunnyvale School Addition. So this would be encompassing everything you see here south of Nance all the way down to Tripp Road. But really, this plat is, the purpose of it is to realign Hounsel Lane to connect with Nance. It's also adding Lot 1 of Sunnyvale Intermediate School, which is new school, that will be part of this whole plat. So I'd just like to go ahead and state that. SISD has submitted engineering plans for Hounsel Road to be extended a distance of 900 feet with the same width, pavement as existing section, sidewalks to be expanded, and an asphalt connection to existing Nance Road is also part of this work. All comments on this plan have been addressed. Public notice was provided in the newspaper on the 27th last month. We did receive a couple letters in approval, or one approval for this item. We did not receive any in opposition. However, we did have a few calls from neighboring citizens just wanting to know what all is going on, how this came about, and what this plat concerns. With all that being said, town staff recommends approval of the replat for Sunnyvale School Addition. If y'all have any questions.
Questions for staff? Would the applicant like to speak? Sir, if you just state your name for the record. Name and address.
Good evening, Seth Kelly with RLK Engineering, 111 West Main in Allen, Texas. I'm here on behalf of the school district. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I do have a question. With the addition of the intermediate school, has council been considered to be widened to accommodate or to increase capacity?
Widening it is not something that we've discussed before.
Has anybody looked at the traffic light situation at Hounslow and Collins? I mean, because this mentions the traffic flow issues, and I think one of the main issues is that you have no turn signal coming off of Hounslow onto Collins from the school. So I feel like if we're addressing traffic flow issues, is that part of this analysis?
The traffic signal was not part of the project or part of the analysis. I believe, Lyle may know better. I think it may have been discussed in the past as part of the Collins improvements perhaps, but I'm not exactly sure. It's not part of this project.
Lyle can speak more to phase 2 of Collins widening, but this was just really to connect the north part of Council to.
It just talks about the traffic flow issues, so that's part of,
Yes,
that's a
it is.
huge traffic flow issue.
I understand, and he can
That's
speak
where
better
we're-
to that
okay.
if you have any questions.
And is it going to be two-way the whole way, Council and Nance for?
Hounslow was the 2-lane, I mean,
Right, I know it
37
is
foot back
now,
to
but
back.
nothing's changing.
The traffic flow around the school, I think, will probably be mostly one way from the school, just the way the school will circulate.
Okay.
But Hounslow was designed, it's a 37 foot back to back street with,
But you
two-way
think
traffic.
it's possible that traffic flow direction will be altered once this is in place?
Along Nance, I believe it'll probably be one way depending on how the final traffic circulation of the school ends up, but that's kind of the intention. Eventually, there won't be much traffic on Nance at all, but other than school traffic.
I'd just like to add that what this was kind of, the intent was to deter traffic so it would come down Hounslow.
Right,
But they can still use Nance. That'll be resurfaced in the widening.
okay. Will Nance go towards the school, do we know, or away from the school? I'm just trying to get you're saying it may go one way, do we know, is it going to be,
Oh, it's supposed to be a 2-lane.
oh, is it supposed to
I
be?
mean, it can 2-lane, I mean, a lot of the traffic concerns with the school will be coming out as.
I see
if
what
I
you're
re-
saying. So it
yeah.
won't be
For the school.
designated one way, but it will be
Correct,
the traffic
correct.
that we're anticipating?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric, is this a public hearing item?
Yes.
So, no, vote to approve.
So I'll open the public hearing. Does anyone want to speak on this item? Okay, great. Close the public hearing.
My husband's walking in, he wants to say something.
Okay. And then reopen the public hearing, I
Okay.
suppose.
He's about to walk in.
Oh, is someone coming to speak on it?
Yes,
That's
I
what she
believe
said.
he wants.
Yeah, he was walking in,
Oh, okay.
like right now.
Does anyone have any comments, questions, or concerns? Seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Solution, 900 feet
Necessary.
pavement, it's not.
I just
It's
kind
really,
of, I
it's
was
a
just,
replat, so it's changing.
I understand.
the direction
maybe I'm
of
just
the
trying to get
Yeah.
a little more information.
Sir just wants the inside scoop on how to get to school.
That's right. I want to know ahead of everybody else.
Eric, I do have a question for you.
Yes.
Collins, traffic has been obviously an issue. I would recommend that the staff look at widening any opportunities on the, for instance, Hounslow and the connector that's adjacent to all the buildings. It doesn't look like it has a name. It's connecting to Nance.
Oh, yeah, you mean the portion that goes off to the north? To
It
the
connects,
northwest,
It connects into Nance, that what appears to be a thin road, but I'm not sure what that is.
Right here?
Okay, I'll put that.
Yes, so this is, it's darker. This is where it was, and that's what's gonna be abandoned, and it's gonna reconnect up here. We'll have a little smaller street coming off to it, like there. Yeah, I don't have this schematic on here, but
If it is it school property as opposed to town property, right?
possibly Lau can speak better to that. Sorry, Al.
That's all right. I'm sorry, ma'am, could you please repeat the question? I didn't quite
Sure.
catch what you said.
This road, right, I'm assuming this is a road on this, and you'd have to look at this to see. It's connecting into Nance.
Oh, this?
Is that a road?
No, ma'am, that is, I know it looks like that on the area, that's the old railroad bed.
Okay.
That runs through.
Oh, we
that-
can't do anything
Right,
there.
that is not,
I don't know why the old plat showed it going through an easement,
Yeah.
but that's what it was. But no, that's just a power line.
You know, just looking at any opportunities to widen some roads so that the traffic.
well, I can say, as you know, we're about to start the improvement of what we're calling Collins Road Phase 1, just right out here. The next step will be to improve Collins Road Phase 2, which will encompass that frontage along in front of the school up to Town East Boulevard.
Okay. That's,
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Did you want to open the, I guess, anybody from the public wants to?
So,
Sir, if you just come to the microphone and state your name and address.
My name is Rich Phillips, 418 Duxbury Court. I'm one of about 5 people who this is going to put a big old intersection in our backyard. We have the houses that right there on the other side of Nance Road. And right now it's 5 to 10 cars a day maybe that go along there. And I don't understand the full plan. I've talked a little bit to somebody at town staff about the plan here that appears to be maybe encouraging people to turn there off of Nance to go to Collins on Hounsel. But the minute you open this thing, the first thing that's going to happen is everybody that's going to the elementary school that waits on Hounsel in the afternoon to pick their kid up is going to figure out there's a back door. And we're going to have hundreds of cars on Nance Road coming in that way to try to get to the school a faster way. And then you're going to have 2 directions of traffic trying to get to the school at the same time. And you're going to end up, I think if you're going to have access to the intermediate school on Nance, you're going to add all the elementary school traffic to Nance too. You're going to back up Nance. I don't understand why we want to have 2 ways to get to the elementary school or away from the elementary school in a way that's going to add traffic to a fairly small road. I know you're going to widen it, but this isn't just like sort of expanding or building a neighborhood where somebody had empty land behind them. This is a fairly major intersection, and it's not far from our backyards. It's not separated by much. We're going to have huge amounts of increase in sound, in traffic going by with air quality, cars sitting there idling, waiting for school to get out. I've seen the lines on Hounsel with people waiting to pick their kids up from school. Those lines will be on Nance Road and on Hounsel right there by my house. As people turn left, their headlights will go right through our back window. And you guarantee you people will do that after football games or other activities at the school. Waze will tell them that's a good way to get out, even if they don't know that it's there. I'm just concerned about a significant increase in traffic in an area that I think when the neighborhood was put together, there wasn't a contemplation that there was going to be that significant amount of traffic because that alleyway is just right there. It right up abuts. There's maybe, I haven't measured it, 10, 25 feet maybe between the alleyway and Nance, and it's at a significantly higher grade. If somebody comes around that corner too fast or something else happens, you're going to have a car in our alleyway, you're going to have a car in our backyard. Without something, I mean, at least mitigation. Put up a wall to block the sound and the light from all this traffic that's going to be going. We go from 5 to 10 cars a day to, it's going to be hundreds. I'm interested if anybody's actually done a study to estimate how much traffic is going to be going through that intersection. Has anybody looked at that or estimated that?
I'm not sure if we had a TIA done for this. Sometimes it's on bigger developments where they do that. Lau, do you know if we had any?
I'm not aware of a TIA for this specifically.
I mean, it seems like a whole lot of increase in traffic, and it concerns me as one of the 4 or 5 people who is going to be most impacted by putting this significant intersection in our backyard. And I really ask that we spend some more time studying it before we just approve it.
Sir, I mean, so I can get your, I can So you're concerned that people would be coming down Collins, and instead of turning left on Council, they would turn left on Nance?
Well, if they're coming south, yeah, or they'll go up and turn right to avoid the lines of cars waiting at the elementary school. They'll turn right on Nance and come up on Hounsel the back way.
To drop off at the elementary
Right.
school?
Because they're going to be trying to avoid the lines that build up on Hounsel. The minute somebody figures out there's a back way, they'll go back there because they think it'll be faster.
Okay.
And then the other thing it's going to do, and I'm not a traffic engineer, I'm a lawyer,
sure,
but to me, the other thing you're going to end up doing is you're going to have, instead of one direction of cars going in, dropping their kids off and going out, you're going to have one direction of cars coming this way and another one coming this way, and they're going to have to merge that into one line to get into the elementary school, and that's just going to slow the
I
process
hear what you're
down.
saying, you're saying that people use that as a back way, and then
Right.
have to merge in with that traffic circle at the elementary school.
That's what and the other thing to me is, and somebody explained it, again, I don't know who it was I talked to at town staff that said part of this was the idea is we need another exit from the gated community. So they would drive down Nance, when they get to Hounsel, they'll turn left on Hounsel and take Hounsel to Collins. Why not keep the plat as it is, where it crosses the old railroad, and keep it going that way, and just have people exit on Hounsel? Then you don't have to try to encourage them to turn left. Turning left, by the way, that's always, you're not going to put a light there. So to the extent people are supposed to turn left, they're going to have to wait if there's people going the other direction. Why not just use Hounsel as the exit instead of trying to somehow come up with a way to encourage people to turn left off of Nance? Again, I don't know, I don't have all the other plans in front of me, but that seems like a reasonable alternative, and it keeps the street from being so darn close to our alleyway.
Okay, well, I appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name's Dave Lasson, 412 Duxbury Court, and I would just echo a lot of the things that Mr. Phillips said. I'm also one of these 5 houses that would be impacted. And I don't guess I understand, I spoke with town council or town staff earlier today too, how Hounsel and Nance will connect into Stony Creek. I guess it was indicated there's ultimately going to be another entrance or exit off of Nance, and I don't know where that is from looking at this replat either, because I echo Mr. Phillips' concern in that there's going to be hundreds of cars coming up and down there, and you're going to wind up creating more of a traffic flow issue than a traffic flow relief.
And Eric, I think we should be, I agree that Nance was always intended to be a road to be used by Stony Creek, right? And Hounsel was always intended to touch base with, touch it.
At some point, it was planned to connect it to give more access points to the entire development. Now, I do agree with these gentlemen that I guess there could be other explorations, like I've already, and I thought, if there was a one-way and no trucks or no cars are allowed to turn on the Nance towards, going back, then that would alleviate the problem of people trying to cut through. And then beyond that, if you're coming from Hounsel, I guess you could take Nance, but only to the east. So I don't mean to put in I guess I kind of am putting my opinion, but I guess I'm saying we could possibly look at alternatives, or the engineer can speak to any questions you all have.
It seems like we need to have
The road.
other routes because we're adding another school. But it also seems like, and I think Nance does make sense for its location, but how it's used to avoid some of the concerns that they're raising as far as, having it be a back way in, which really would kind of defeat the whole purpose, I think, because then it would create a huge mess of people trying to turn left and right.
But again,
So, I think.
how the road exists and how the
Yeah.
school uses its traffic flow is two different things.
Correct.
They can cone it off in certain
Right.
hours, and
Yeah.
I imagine.
And that's what I'm saying.
I imagine the school people have thought
Yes.
about this and said, like, we're gonna cone it off. I mean, you agree, your point is
Yeah,
well taken.
It makes sense.
But I promise you, I hear your point, and I think the road is sort of destined to be there, but it's how it's used, this really would impact your lives, I think, right?
Right, and I don't hear, from what they've just said, that they've fully contemplated or communicated exactly how they anticipate it's going to be used. So I guess I'd be curious what the school intends to do to manage that traffic flow with a new campus and the primary school campus, because I haven't heard anything clearly to understand how there's not going to be hundreds of cars behind my house parked and idling every day.
Sure, understand. Thank you for your comments.
Were you here a couple of months ago when Stony Creek builder proposed, and I can't remember the numbers, the expansion of the gated community? They had significant change there on how the roads would be laid out. The other thing is going way, way back. Originally, if I remember right, Nance was originally thought to be an extinct road. They were going to take it out, and Hounsel was going to curve in and follow
That's
sort
what
of
we
the path of Nance and go back into the development, because behind the school, I don't know if you've seen the plat, for the full Stony Creek plat, there's going to be, I don't know how many hundreds of houses to the east of the
between
school,
3 and 4B couple.
north of Robin Ridge. Is it called Robin Ridge? What they're building right now on Tripp. Those exit on Tripp. Everything to the north of that, from where Robin Ridge is now, all the way to Nance, all the access to that community was to go up and out Hounsel.
Yeah, so
So the traffic flow was for all of those houses to go Hounsel, which would basically replace Nance.
in the prior Stony Creek ordinance, or the current one, the developer of Track 5, and this is still being looked at, well, that developer would improve the road. And eventually, I think, I'm sure you are correct, it was to connect. But,
I think the latest proposal was to not have an out on Nance, but have a security, we call it a gate, that the fire department can open and close, emergency gate, but where it's blocked off there. And the two points of egress and regress into the gated community were going to be where the entrance is now, and one a little farther to the north.
Can I just say, that was what Mr. Klein just explained was our understanding when we bought the house. That the idea was that Nance was not going to become a major thoroughfare. It was going to be essentially an extinct road, and that there was going to be other access points. And now we're making this change.
But
No, I think the change, I mean, it's always, Hounsel always has to connect with something. It's whether it connects with Nance or.
Nance basically from, there's a trail you can walk around the
Right.
lake. Where the trail comes out and crosses Nance. I believe from there towards Collins, that part would go away, but Hounsel was going to originally, as you can see on the map here, was going to curve in and basically replace Nance. So I don't have the plat in front of me. If there was always going to be traffic behind those houses, that Nance would be replaced. Maybe if we saw
I believe the
some of
ordinance
the plats to
called,
get an idea how this is being rerouted and all, it might help us out.
we are still looking at the new 3 and 4 tracks, or looking at the civils. Lyle's been looking at it, I have. So if you have any questions about how it connects, you could Lyle help. Exactly, so I haven't had such an in-depth look. I'm sorry, can you speak to the flow of traffic on the new tracks that are being platted?
Well, yes, as Eric said, we currently have the civil plans here in-house for review for Stony Creek phases. I believe it's 3B, 4B, and 4C, which are all kind of north of, if you extend if you extend Nance east, everything north of that, we're currently looking at. There is planned to be a single connection to the existing alignment of Nance Road about 2,000 feet east of the railroad bed that crosses. So the connection point is not visible on that exhibit there. It's going to be to the east. And that is intended to be the second point of access for those eastern parts of those phases of Stony Creek, because otherwise there's only one point of access in and out for several hundred homes, and that's just not viable from a safety standpoint.
But the final result would be is that those people come down Nance and turn on Hounsel and use Collins instead of continuing down Nance. And
the intention is people coming out of the subdivision would get onto the existing Nance to the east, and then as they enter this realignment, they will be encouraged by everything we can do by laying out the streets to follow Hounsel out to the Collins where there's a signalized intersection, and not follow the western part of Nance out to Collins Road where there is no signal and is a much less safe intersection. We want to encourage everybody we can to use Hounsel Road to access Collins.
Can I ask a question? What are the long range or short range plans for Nance anyway? I mean, the last time I drove down it, you wouldn't want to drive down it.
Well, the part of Nance that is west of the railroad bed, Our Public Works Director is working with Dallas County to have that resurfaced, widened slightly. It's still going to only be, it's not going to be widened out to 4 lanes or anything like that. It's just going to be widened out somewhat for safety purposes. And that's really it at this point. The part of Nance that's to the east is going to be improved. The construction work is going to be done by the developers of the Stony Creek development as it comes forward. There's still some discussions internally about the details of that section, but that's going to be worked out at that point. And my understanding is that would be constructed at such time as these new phases of Stony Creek go in.
What would it take to just, if you want to encourage or have all the traffic coming out of Stony Creek to go south on Hansel, what would it take to just cut Nance off right there?
Well, the reason it's not being cut off completely is because the intention is for the school to use it for their circulation. That being said, that intersection right there, that's the small connection between where Hounsel starts to go down and up to Nance Road is going to be just a little small asphalt drive. Folks coming through there are going to have to stop and make a 90-degree turn and then make another 90-degree turn to continue on to Nance, whereas it's down Hounsel, it's just a straight shot. So the traveling public will have a much easier time and there'll be more natural of a flow for them to just follow the alignment of Hounslow out to Collins and not take the rest of Nance out to Collins. Plus, as I say, they'll have a safer intersection once they get out there. And they'll know that they're not going to want to make a left-hand turn with a stop sign with very poor visibility. They're going to want to go down there to the signalized intersection, which is much safer.
Well, I can understand these gentlemen's argument and everything, and that, there could be some traffic, certainly some traffic problems there if you let the traffic go east on Nance and then try to circle back to get on Hansel to drop the kids off in that circle area. So, I don't know, I just see continued problems as long as Nance is there, unless it's made a one way going south.
Let me close the public hearing if no one else has anything to speak, unless you have any more questions.
Go ahead.
Any more? Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Does anyone else have anything to say? Do you want to speak on this matter?
Can I ask a question?
You come up to the microphone, ma'am. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I was just wondering.
Name and address.
I'm Emily Phillips. I live at 418 Duxbury Court. So what is the current plan for widening the road? I know we got a letter, an email or something from our HOA saying, don't worry about the trees being cut down behind your house right now because they're widening it. And for the last 2 weeks, we've had people cutting down the trees that are right behind our house that have been the barrier between our house and Nance Road. So we've already taken out a bunch of the noise barrier and the beauty that we had when we were there. So I don't know how much more they're going to continue cutting down or what that plan is, but I feel like we've already lost a ton.
We followed up on that. I mean, it is what they said to widen. I can't speak to how much they're going to cut down. I don't believe that.
It used to be full coverage, now we see straight into Nance Road. And so I guess we've already lost a bunch of that.
I can't answer how many.
When is, so.
We can follow up with the,
I can follow up
whoever's,
with you,
we can follow up
yes.
with that and get the answer to your question, because it seems like a question about how far they're going to widen and what else they're going to cut down. I think that's your question.
Yeah,
So can we get the answer and follow up with you?
that'd be great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You and Mr. Rich.
Can I ask one last thing?
Yes, sir.
I heard discussion in there about putting up cones and trying to make people go one way at certain times of the day. We've done the same thing down by the middle school. It doesn't work. It's supposed to be a one-way street in, right? But at night, people go out that thing all the time. I work the Sunnyvale High School Marching Band Invitational every year, and trying to help people understand that when they get to that intersection at the middle school, that it's do not enter. It's a one-way street. It's an in only, and you've got to. People just ignore it all the time. All day Saturday, you see people go down there and turn left or right off of that road, leaving the middle school that are there for middle school football games or pee-wee football games or whatever. They just ignore the do not enter. So if the idea is somehow we're going to make it so that it's supposed to be one way sometimes or not all the time, who's going to enforce it? They don't pay attention to it down between the middle school and the high school. Why are they going to pay attention to it up there? I don't understand how that's gonna look either.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that part he's talking about, that's more of a road into the school. It's really not a road. Council's a road. Nance will be a road. If you're going the wrong way on one way, I would imagine the sheriff can be placed there to give tickets.
No, I mean, I think
for the
that,
wrong
I
way.
mean,
And I think it's a little bit.
for.
But I do agree, I've seen that before, and I've done that myself, and there's nobody, you see people turning right there, coming out, instead of going all the way around the school.
The question is there an alternative to
Is there a
Council?
way to-
Council needs to connect somewhere, it just cannot be the road.
And we had several meetings, and, I mean, I'm sure there were alternatives that were kind of spoken about. This was what the design they came up with. And so Mr. Kelly, if you can speak to why this was a particular design rather than others, may help. I know we had met several times about this.
No, I mean, I know this is not a decision that's
Yeah.
made easily or lightly, and I think that, I mean, it's a no-win perfect solution. I mean, school traffic is everywhere, it's horrible. I mean, if you fix that, you'll miss it here.
Yeah.
Correct. I think the initial, the main thing was trying to get the traffic from the school to come back around, eastbound on Nance and come down Hansel to get to a signalized intersection rather than stacking up on Nance and trying to make right and left turns onto Collins where there's no signalized intersection and people, it's a more dangerous intersection. And also it's a lot more stacking room, for people to stack off of Collins, off of the main road. The intention is for the piece of Nance that's left to be mainly for the school, not for the general public all day long. Obviously, Hounsel will be a much easier, more convenient to get to Collins than Nance would. There's no turns, it'd be straight through, so that's the intention there.
I haven't really been paying attention to the construction. Which way is the new school, intermediate school? Which way is it facing? Where's the front of this new school?
The front of the school will be facing Collins Road.
The school will actually be facing Collins Road.
Yes, sir.
So the pickup and drop off will be on the Collins side, on Collins Road?
Yeah, the traffic, the circulation will be clockwise where the parents can pull in and the students can get out on the passenger side towards the school.
Enter off of Collins or enter off of?
Surely not entering off of.
Yeah.
They would be entering off of Hounsel.
Yeah. But it'll be on
I mean, you
the
can see it right there as you go there now.
Oh, okay, I see, that's just, well, then it comes out almost,
They will exit onto Nance and then be able to go around and get onto Hounsel to get back onto Collins, rather than everybody piling up at Nance and Collins and not being able to make a turn because it won't be signalized.
so they'll come here like this, come through here,
Yeah.
and come out right here.
Well, the point is that they get flow to come up through Collins. Everyone wants to exit Collins at the intersection. Council
And
Collins.
when they come out right there, they're within 100 feet of Collins, right? So would they not go this way and come out?
Can you put up the plat on the final plat? Can you draw the flow of the proposed
Right
traffic?
there.
We'll go sort of that. I imagine, I don't have it,
The traffic will come from Hounsel, go around the west side of the school to Nance, and then they can come all the way back around.
And they're gonna come from there and then go up Nance and make a complete circle back through Hounsel. Seems like taking.
Well, no,
traffic
you won't be able,
right back in
when you
all the
exit
traffic.
right there next to Nance, it'll start backing up. Nance and Collins will start backing up because it's not signalized. And nobody will be able to get out. So they can go down Nance and then come back to Hounsel and get back to a signalized intersection where they can make a right or left turn onto Collins.
So you have people coming in off Collins, going there, coming back around and coming back out Hounsel where people are coming
So
in.
there's gonna be a loop?
You're gonna be running them back into each other, not in each other, but, I can.
But that's your understanding,
I see the
right?
problem on
No,
Nance
that's-
with
I don't have the
dumping
building
out at the
plan,
intersection, but
the
to,
site plan of it.
but to feed everybody that drops off back into the whole middle of everything again. It's a traffic jam.
I honestly don't think we have purview over the school's traffic flow. I don't think that's. I mean, I
But
think
it's pertinent to them because it's directing everybody back
It's certainly
around.
pertinent to them. I think this is the pertinent part, is
Neighborhood.
that how the school does their traffic, I think is how the school does their traffic, right? I mean,
There's no perfect solution. I mean, you've got a school, you've got parents, you've got backups. There's no perfect solution. It's just part of it. But this will help keep the jam up from happening there.
I do want to say that, and I know this is not on the table right now, but we keep talking about sending everybody to a signalized intersection that has no left turn from the school. So if that is our intent here, and that is the goal, is to send everybody because it's going to be that much better on getting onto Collins, there must be a left turn off of Hounsel onto Collins from the school side, or you will never, ever get that traffic flow that you're talking about. And it's going to back up and people will use alternatives because it is awful. And anybody who's had to drop off, pick up, whatever, it's terrible. And it doesn't make sense to wait. I know where you can stick a left-hand turn, you don't need to wait until it's widened.
Yeah, that's-
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the left turn signal.
I mean, I think there's,
I know-
I mean, everyone knows the issues with the school traffic, I mean.
But if they're trying to fix it, I'm
No,
just
I
saying
know.
this is supposed to fix it, and they're wanting to send everybody to that intersection, then we
No.
gotta fix that intersection, or they will look for alternatives. That's the problem.
The question is, does this, how Hounsel Lane links up with Nance have anything to do with any of these other things? And it's hard for me to say that,
Well, one thing I thought is that on this, it's not on here in the slides, but it's in your packet. You can see a schematic on the memo. It looks like only about 2 cars will be able to stack up. And any more than that in queue will back up on Hounsel. So I just think that that'll itself will discourage people from trying to go from Hounsel down West Side Nance to Collins, westward. But, I mean, that's something I was looking at. But as for predicting the flow and how, you know, it's going to be evolve with people taking ways and it's telling you different intersections, I can definitely, we can take this back and look at it further. Any other
well,
options.
I mean, is this essential to any sort of school plan, like that has to
It
happen
has to be done
today?
today.
I mean, I know everything's essential, but I'm just
I
trying
mean,
to
the
say.
plat, and that's, has to be done for them to be able to extend, so.
I think we really need to do is hear what the school traffic's gonna look like. I think we need to hear what the Stony Creek looks like to come up to Nance and how important this whole thing is.
To be able to get this constructed before school starts, we really don't have a lot of time for any more delays.
That's what I'm worried about, is that we're gonna delay this, and I mean, if Hounsel doesn't connect, what do you do? I mean, it'd be a disaster. It has to connect somewhere. Okay, thank you. Ma'am, I'll reopen the public hearing, because this will be the last time, because I don't want to keep reopening the public
Sorry.
hearing.
Town manager.
Okay, hi.
Hi.
Susan Guthrie, I'm the town manager, and I apologize, I'm in another meeting next door and kind of got pulled out, so I hope I'm not repeating something that you've already heard, but just in case, I want to make sure you have all the information. And I have Lyle's gone to get the map of what I'm talking about, but we are in the process right now of working with a developer to connect Hounsel to Nance so that it will preclude people from the development going all the way to Collins on Nance. So is that information that's already been shared?
How would you preclude them?
By closing down that segment of the street,
Closing down a section of Nance,
yes.
east of the railroad tracks.
It would be after, and again, Lyle just went to get the map from me, it would be after.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I don't understand. It
Okay.
is, I don't know just how far from there, but this is.
That's what we talked about this whole time, is the whole time was Hounsel connects with Nance. And at some point, they're spacing Nance, spacing that Hounsel connected and then their intermediate school would be, no longer be a road. It would cease to be a road, so you could not.
So there is and on the map we're bringing, there is a portion that would allow for that continuation of the buses to go up to Nance and then make the circle back by the intermediate school. But the part that would come from the neighborhood, that is the intention. And in order to do what I'm talking about, and I'm in conversation right now with the developer, we have to have the plat that dedicates the right-of-way in order to make that happen. So that's what's contained in this
And
plat.
do you have any insight into the school traffic around the intermediate school, like how that's meant to look like? Do you have any information on that?
I don't, not specifically.
Okay, thank you.
I hope that helped a little bit
So,
with the
excuse me, that would be abandoning that that western part of Nance Road, right?
That, not the entirety, but the portion between where the school district would connect and where Hounslow would connect. The intention is to keep the majority of traffic from using Nance and hitting Collins because of kind of, you know, it's just not the best place for traffic to be entering that. So, and, you know, and I apologize that we're very early in this process of negotiating with the developer and trying to come to agreement. So the actual specifics of how that disconnection would happen, I don't necessarily have that because it hasn't been designed, but that is the intention.
That
Okay,
makes sense.
does that help a little
Yes,
bit?
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
With the construction we're doing now, the connection back to Hansel will be a 90-degree turn from Nance down to Hansel, and eventually the only through will be on Hansel, not Nance.
Right. Essentially, part of Nance will be,
You won't be able to take it through westbound on Nance all the way to Collins.
Okay.
okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? I think with
I think
the,
I'm starting to.
I think the long-term plan is that I guess the intermediate school traffic flow to be determined. But I thought Mr. Williams talked to us about this whole thing. When
Yeah.
I think I think the school,
We've had several meetings, kind of back and forth on specifics of how it's going to be constructed. I mean, I know the materials and that sort of thing, but this replat was really just to get that design going.
okay.
Beyond that, I don't know
Does
exactly.
anyone have any
So, okay,
further?
so.
I tried to pull up the engineering schematics. It's not saved on this computer. Go ahead.
So the intermediate school will exit onto Nance, or will not? Will exit
I
on
mean,
Collins?
the way it's designed, you can take that fork to keep going on
And
the
go.
Nance if you want
Okay.
to, but this whole design is just so that we can get nobody to do that, but the school but I don't know, any school.
And they're really
vehicles.
wanting to use it as a loop, so you go.
That's
you
what my
loop back
understanding
around?
is, but we don't want the public to,
But if Nance is abandoned, then
I don't
then
know
that part will
when,
not be used at all.
The traffic will
I
come
don't
in
know
here,
when or might, if it will
come in here,
abandon, that's not
go this way,
currently what.
around there, drop off, go up to Nance,
Which is really high up
and
there.
then come all the way back around here, and come back around here where everybody's coming in here to the current middle school, and dropping off and coming in, and you'll loop everything back through the middle.
No, I don't think that's the way it's supposed to go. I think there's a loop there that's missing on the road, where the school entrance is, like a loop around, like the elementary school.
So what is,
This is the loop in front of the existing elementary school, right?
Yeah.
yeah, but
The
is
elementary
that,
school
are
is
they
here.
envisioning they're gonna go up and come back down that road?
From
There
what
will
I
be-
understand, they're coming here, right up there,
I don't
drop
think they're
off
gonna,
to the
are they gonna
right.
come all the way back down, or are they gonna go down this road here?
No, this is
Is that not a
the,
road?
this is the old,
That's
Railroad
an
right away.
easement, that's not
That's
a
just
road.
the easement,
Yeah.
okay. So they are
This
gonna
is
have
the
to go
only
all the
road
way
there
down
is.
to come back?
Right there, and then it'll connect here. There'll also be a little connecting road onto, I didn't see the
So
full,
they are
But
gonna,
honestly, that's not.
but that's not what's part of the plat right now.
That's part of the school plat, the intermediate
Yeah.
school plat, and that's,
that's not what we're doing.
we're not addressing that today. We're addressing merely just, how does council go into?
I mean, if we bring us back, we'll look into the site plan of the current intermediate school and just to get.
Yeah, I mean, I think
nailed down.
I think that a lot of people bring up some concerns about school traffic,
Yeah.
and that can be part of the minutes.
Yeah.
But as far as how council connects to the Nance,
Yeah.
is really what we need to.
We really need to focus on the Stony Creek people that are coming from the west
Correct.
or east that way, and how to divert them from
Yes.
going down Nance. That's really, really what we're concerned about. And the school stuff is a problem, but it's really not our problem today.
Correct. So do we have any thoughts or is there any small motion?
I have a question. What are we waiting on then with respect to what the town manager indicated they're negotiating with the developer? What is the specific plan, if any, that we're waiting on to be able to assist us to get to that point?
I can't answer
And I have a question, can you introduce a map of an item that's not in the packet that had
that. No, that wasn't, no,
previously put before the public?
no, we can't put anything right now.
That's what I consider, pulling out maps and making
Table
it.
and stuff.
Good news is they're already negotiating.
Well, I just don't want to table something and
Yeah.
we leave a decision that's not, I mean,
But Housel was always intended
Yeah.
And again, Stony Creek, I live in Stony Creek, and the original plans have changed. They change. You have a plan, and then it changes.
Well, it's new
And I
developers,
understand
that's the
the idea of
problem.
not having a street behind you, but Housel was originally
Yes.
intended on replacing Nance up in there behind them. I don't know how far past or how far behind their house is, but it was always intended on.
And the only thing is they're just not getting rid of Nance all the way down at this moment.
They're just
Everything
gonna
else
use
is kind
Nance.
of the same.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it'll eventually happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In some form or
I
fashion.
guess, and then if they're gonna have this open by school.
Well, that's why they need us to do it now.
Yeah.
And Stony Creek development to the east of the school, when they start doing that, all that
Yeah.
traffic's gonna come out.
If they don't have a way of blocking that, if they don't have this, then it's gonna be a real mess. And then they will have hundreds of people going down Nance because those people will have no way out other than Nance if they don't connect Housel.
Right, so
I mean,
the
really,
connection of Housel is
it's actually key. The key is to not let the school traffic become a problem.
correct.
But that's what they have to deal with the school district. Well,
Well, I mean,
but on
that-
me.
that's actually really well said. I mean, that's the point, right? The well said part is that it has to connect or you're gonna get.
Right, it'll be used just by
That being said, I think we're ready.
non-school traffic.
Yeah.
Okay,
So are we waiting?
No, we don't have to wait for that, we just,
I think we can do that.
yeah. Do I have someone make a motion or?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to know if it's possible.
Eric.
Find a way if we could figure out what that is that we're waiting on, but if not,
Can we get the town manager to figure out what we're waiting on with some sort of development deal? Is this like a backdoor deal that we can,
I mean, they're still in negotiations
on how to?
about what will happen with Collins and Houndsville, and that's not gonna happen. I mean, that will happen before phase 2, I mean, of the widening, but
So they're early in negotiations?
yes. And I'm sorry that I can't answer this right now. This plat concerns the connection on the north side,
No, it's okay.
and, I mean,
We
we
might have-
like, we can.
We're
go
probably a little
back.
off topic. I mean, the idea that Housel has to connect to Nance is
That's, I mean,
is imperative, because otherwise
Yes,
it will be 100 cars.
it will.
Because then
And-
we'll have all the Stony Creek traffic going down Nance, right? Because they'll have to get out, the new developments will have
Yes,
to get out
yes,
sometime.
that is what's happening. There is a connection going east and west. It is being resurfaced, and Houndsville is being connected to. That's, sorry, but that is what item is today.
Yeah.
As for the rest, if you'd like me, I can look into it. I'm already gonna follow up with the Phillips.
I think it would be nice to follow up with her about her question about the trees. That
Oh,
sounds
what
like
about the tree?
Yes, I have
Yeah,
that.
definitely immediately on
I
that.
understand that is part of screening, noise pollution, light pollution.
And I know the school has workshops on, if you want to sit in their workshops about traffic flow, I'm sure they're happy to have anywhere.
I'm sure there's no shortage of
Join
commentary.
their committee.
Mr. Chairman, I'll have a motion for approval.
Great.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Sandler, a second by Mr. Daniel. All in favor? It's unanimous. Okay, moving on. Agenda item number 2, hold a public hearing to consider the act upon the request of David Jackson, the Jackson Company, to change the town zoning map from industrial to industrial plan development. And this is for the Sunnyvale Center Truck Service and Park at or about 326, 330 Clay Road.
Okay. Yes, the applicant has submitted a zone change request in order to develop Sunnyvale Truck Service and Park, proposed truck and trailer maintenance facility with outdoor storage, parking making wheelers, construction equipment, other large machinery. Planned development will consist of 12.4 acres east of Clay Road. Let me go ahead. Sorry, I have several things open. There it is. 12.4 acres east of Clay Road and south of Ashton Drives, behind J. Ryle Transport. It's mostly undeveloped aside from a water tower and some pavement used to store trailers. It's zoned it is zoned industrial. The future land use category shows it as business park industrial, and all the properties are all in various industrial uses surrounding it. Property to the east is Dallas Water Utilities. South is various structures and space owned by McElroy Metal, and the property to west is Accurate Systems. The proposed development would consist of various uses which altogether would require several specific use designations, variations from town code, It is for the reason that staff felt it best to recommend that they apply for a zone change to plan development with I industrial being the base zoning district. The PD, they can request variations from base zoning district standards with regard to lot size, design, proposed uses, the types of uses allowed, and standards applicable to plan developments may vary from the base zoning district. You'll have the descriptions of business park, and I would like to go into the variations. Applicant is seeking to establish a business with multiple uses which would otherwise require specific use designations for each, which are heavy machinery sales, rental, storage, and repair, contractor storage yard, physical storage facility. Besides these uses, the only other variation from town code being requested is to allow for the use of aggregate gravel, crushed stone, recycled concrete as for their surfaces for parking. Instead of the town mandated code requirement of cement, as that is what our normal paving is. The general breakdown of the site consists of consists of the front portion of the lot, 1.1 acres for the maintenance building and small office. Majority of the back portion of the lot will be 8.3 acres, will be reserved for vehicle parking and access drives. The remainder will be landscaping areas and stormwater detention. The proposed building will be metal with a variable height, roof 30 feet high. Building operation hours will be 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. during the week. Yard will be gated and accessible by code 24 hours a day. Now there will be no overnight stay for any of the drivers of these trucks that will be staying here. They will be dropped off. Finally, public notice was provided in the town's official newspaper on February 27th. Letters were also sent to abutting property owners. 8 of them were mailed, and we did receive one of them back in favor here, and none in opposition. With all that being said, staff recommends approval of the request, plan development, Sunnyvale Truck Service Park. If y'all have any questions.
Thanks, Eric. Does the applicant here to speak?
Yes.
Sir, if you don't mind, just stating your name and address for us.
I'm David Jackson. I live at 8216 Tangle Rose Drive in Frisco. Even though I'm a foreigner, I've been working Sunnyvale Center for 15 years now. On this particular property, I'm just an agent. I'm a real estate broker. I do have 2 other sites in the park where I'm a minority owner. So,
Just a few small clarifications. Vehicle storage facility?
this property is, the guy who currently owns the little appendage there, it's 1.28 acres, is Western Flyers. They're a trucking company. Their primary client here is Marazzi, the evolution of Marazzi in Dow. His primary purpose for using a good portion of this is storing trailers for Marazzi. They have a huge demand for trailer storage as they've gone.
So it's sort of a parking lot for the trailers to move tile, a lot of Marazzi is.
Correct. And then in addition to that, we're working to develop this for, frankly, all these over-the-road drivers who live around in Mesquite and all, and they can't park their big rig in front of their house because it'd cover up 2 more houses. So for them to be able to lease a spot on a long-term basis, and when they're on the road, they leave their pickup truck in their slot and they take their big rig out, and when they're back in town, they move their pickup and park it there. So part of the property would be, primarily for Western Flyers, storing tractor trailers and trailers, and then in addition, leasing out spots for over-the-road truck drivers or other equipment type storage. Right now, Acura Systems, which is in those 2 parallel buildings just to the east of this and the big 80,000-foot building just to the south of it, he has several flatbeds with the finished window units stored on them. He may be a candidate for leasing some of those trailer spaces.
Okay. And then, I'm not a truck driver at all, obviously. The gravel crushed granite thing, I assume that's just for cost, and you don't care that there's gravel in the parking lot?
It is for cost. It costs $3 million if we did the whole thing in concrete, it's probably, and I don't know the exact numbers, but about $1 million to just do the driveways and then gravel it. Some things that are in common either way is that you are gonna have to engineer the site, scrape it, drainage and all, and then put in a fire loop through there with a couple more hydrants up
But the
there.
only
So-
downside of using the granite is it gets kicked up and maybe damages your truck, right? I mean,
Well, they're not driving real fast.
right, but I'm saying if there was a downside to crushed granite, that would be the only downside. Is there something else I'm missing about crushed granite?
The one minor downside is that every now and then you may have to go and kind of, let's say, re-spread it so that if there are any low areas or such, that's the downside. One of the huge upsides is if you pave that entire thing in concrete, you got a lot of water. It's
Yeah.
got to go somewhere. And with the permeable surface of the crushed granite, that allows you to mitigate that tremendously. Plus, this big kind of shaded area on the south side is going to be, there's already some drainage ditches there. We'll be expanding those and to be able to handle the water retention.
Great. Any questions for Mr. Jeffrey?
I have a couple questions. Sir, did you submit a plan development master plan with respect to this application?
To answer that, he did submit all the required pieces. There's narratives, and then the breakdown of his letter request for a PD, his site plan. This is the landscaping plan. I put it up there because other than the striped out parking spaces, it's all the same. This one shows the landscaping plan. So yes, he did submit a full application.
But not a plan development master plan?
I don't know what all of that master plan entail. It has certain requirements for the PPD from the UDO, and those have been met.
Right, that's what I'm going through.
Yes.
So 3.0707 talks about the plan master development. The plan development master plan, which consists of a PD design statement and a PD concept design map.
Yes. Yes. All that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And then with respect to the hours, I know there's going to be an accessible code 24 hours a day, which would imply to me that trucks are going to be coming by at any time of the night.
Right, this is not a 9 to 5 operation. These truck drivers may come in from, Birmingham, Alabama, they've dropped their load off, now they're going home.
Right.
So they come in, they access, it'll be fenced, gated, 2 gates, but a primary gate that I'll access with a combination code so they can go in there, park their truck and go to their house. It's not gonna be like there's, tremendous amounts of operations happening at night. It's just that you want to be able to have these truckers, if you lease it out to those, then they'd be able to come in and access it.
Right. Are you aware, Mr. Jackson, as to how close the nearest planned residence in Sunnyvale is to the...
I don't know the distance, but it's probably the north side of Long Creek and over there in front of the Dallas water plant, which is probably, I don't know, half a mile or more.
Right. As the crow flies, it's half a mile.
There's the map of where it's at.
Right. As the crow flies, it's half a mile.
Yeah.
And so...
And they likely would not be coming down Long Creek.
Okay.
Likelihood is that they will come down, Collins Road to Clay Road.
Right, which is, I think, some of my concern because many residents in Sunnyvale, some of which sit on this commission, are in neighborhoods that are very, very close to that. And I tell you what, you can hear trucks going through at all times. And so if we're talking about the concept of putting in basically a truck parking stop, then, I want to know more about that because that's going to be...
Well, and this is not a truck stop. Yeah, this is not a truck stop like a Jet Pilot or something like that. This is, the over-the-road trucker who's making a trip out for 3 days and coming back in.
They drive to get there.
You've got FedEx right across the street and up a little bit that probably will be running far more trips than this would ever run. And Marazzi Tile itself, although Western Flyers is one trucking company that Marazzi Tile uses.
Right.
But his primary client here is Marazzi Tile, and he's storing trailers, just like you see stored over there on J. Rail's property.
Right.
But You know, I think that the trailer storage and frankly even truck storage, they aren't going in and out every single day. I can't tell you how much when you lease it to 5 spots to a trucking company that's got 5 truck drivers and 5 trucks, how many times they come in and out in a week, I don't know.
Well, my understanding of the application is that you're actually asking for a PD, and currently all these uses, the heavy machinery sales, the contractor storage yard, and the vehicle storage facility are all permitted by way of our plan as an industrial use. So by getting the PD, you're asking for us all to consolidate and essentially aggregate our abilities to review those applications as it comes through. And the plan informs us that we should do that. Think about consolidating as you're asking here in this application. If, and I'm quoting from our packet, if there are new or innovative concepts in land utilization or diversification. So I want to make sure that what we're considering here is not simply just for ease of convenience for the applicant, which we're always happy to accommodate, but we also have to follow our rules, or is this truly for something that is new and or innovative in terms of a concept of land utilization?
New, I don't know about that. I mean, there are, as a real estate broker, one of the things we're seeing more and more and more is companies needing trailer storage. And that's the primary driver of this transaction. I've gotten calls from brokers needing room to store 50 trailers. I don't know what the in and outs are on those trailers, but that is a big demand. There's only a few, and as far as, big rig type, drivers being able to park their rig in a facility versus in their neighborhood, which they can't really do. There are a few facilities around the Metroplex that will accommodate that.
Right.
And this would be one of those. It's back in the back of the park, adjacent to the water plant and all other industrial uses. To be able to develop this land with anything is going to create some traffic.
Well, and
Can
I'm sorry.
How many spaces are you talking about?
I can't remember what we had on the chart. It's probably a couple hundred spaces.
It's close to 200 if I'm right. Some about 150, 200.
And we wrote up the PD to allow for more than just trailers and tractor trailers. We want to, if some construction company has some tracked vehicles, bulldozers and things like that, you cannot store those on concrete or asphalt. They have to be on rock surface. You'll shred anything else. So if somebody's got some bulldozers or something, he can lease some slots out to them, and they'd come in with a big flatbed, load the bulldozer up, and take out with that. But we wanted to be able to include those kind of things. Heck, Vince Hagen over there builds those gigantic, portable concrete batch plants, and she may even lease some spaces when equipment can't be delivered quickly enough. So it's equipment. That's why we listed equipment. And as far as the sales thing, that is just on the off chance. This isn't a truck sales lot. It's really storage lot. We'd like for somebody to be able to have, vehicles for sale as a piece of the deal. I mean, as we were thinking through it all, we thought in terms of what, for example, these RV storage, meaning recreational vehicle storage lots do. Mostly those store them, and then occasionally, people say, hey, I want to be able to sell mine. Well, you don't, I like to not limit that small function out, but, there will be some traffic because there is a developed property. But I don't think you're going to see, 2 trips a day out of any one of those.
But it could, I guess, add anywhere from 150 to 200 other vehicles coming off of Clay Road and Collins at some period of time, not that many a day.
Right, in some period of time, sure. You can't warrant, I mean, we're trying to create something that'll work for the next 40 years. And we can't say how many trips there would be. This isn't FedEx, and it's likely to be, a bunch of different owners that are leasing slots in there. But I seriously doubt, those guys don't come in 2 times a day. Most of these truck drivers, I'd say the extreme case is some guys got trips to Houston and they come out of there in the morning, go get their load in Dallas River, run to Houston, run back, and park their truck. But we don't know. There will be some additional traffic.
We'll have long haul drivers that are gone 3 and 4 or 5 days or so, right?
And that's the greater likelihood.
Mr. Jackson, I have a question regarding the crushed granite.
Mm-hmm.
Are there different sizes of crushed granite?
I don't know. And I'm not sure it'd be crushed. I mean, we're talking about a rock surface. The one thing I want to try to get away from is a caliche surface, because caliche can turn to dust, over time. But, we're wanting to do what we'll call a permeable surface, a rock type surface, for a couple reasons. One, truckers do not mind it at all.
Well,
Not a
the
big
reason
deal.
I ask you is, can sound be mitigated depending on the size of the rock? Big rocks, maybe it makes loud noise. Is there a way for us to mitigate the sound so that the neighboring communities are not as affected?
The location there, with all the industrial around it, I don't think.
Yeah, sound I
They're getting.
It's
just
buried right in the
don't
middle
think
of
is
industrial
an
area.
issue. Yeah.
Let me just point out, just for the commission that's concerned, it's not the specific location that they're in
Right.
where you hear, it's them getting there.
Right,
Right.
but he
Right.
said there were 200 spots. And they're not all gonna be occupied by trucks, because you said there'll be equipment, right?
Perhaps, yes.
And possibly.
Mhm.
And all of those trucks are not gonna be running every single day, in and out, because if that was the case, I would agree. But we're talking sporadic, at different times of day. I mean, your biggest concern is probably at night, because you raised that at the beginning. And they're not all gonna be coming in at the same time at night. I mean, to me, we're not talking thousands, we're talking
If we
200.
don't put something there, no one's gonna use it. I mean, it's in
Well,
the middle of industrial.
Yeah.
zone.
Well, actually, my biggest concern is really neither of those things, with all due respect. It is really that we just don't abrogate the ability to review every specific application on a case-by-case basis.
Mhm.
So it's mentioned in the application that we'll just congeal it out here and do it for convenience, but there's really no good reason to. And if you look at the UDO, which talks about the SUD requirement, then it says that we should be able to look at every application on its own merit and apply the criteria established by the town council and our master plan and our UDO. And so my point is, while they're allowed to do this by right, let's talk when it comes to heavy machinery sales, for example, which is why I passed around our use chart. It's permitted. There's a reason that we said that this should be only allowed by way of an SUD and not a PD or anything else, because we wanted the ability to be able to review each application by its own merit. So I'm not saying no to that per se, but I would say I don't see, and by the applicant's own admission, he didn't really articulate a new or innovative reason, which is the directive that we're given as to why we should allow for a PD. So I'm not saying that this is bad or hours or noise or anything. These are my concerns, yes. But I do believe that we have to follow the rules, and the rules I don't think permits for a PD in this specific circumstance. However, SUDs with respect to all 3 uses are permitted, and my feeling on this is let's invite the applicant to submit those SUDs for all those 3 uses so that we can review each application on its merit and make a better and informed decision as a council, as a commission rather, and better assist our people from whom we serve.
Eric, so all he's really applying for is the idea of changing industrial.
I mean, okay, so.
So I feel like you kind of encouraged him to do the PD, right?
Yeah, well, the thing is, all these are specific uses. To be honest, in some other cities, many of these would be allowed,
Sure.
just outright and industrial. But like Mr. Sandler said, this is meant that we can look at each of those uses
Right.
specifically. I feel like maybe we feel like, well, I think I do, to put it on an applicant to return for 3 separate SUDs when we already have a very long. It's tough, so we figured PD to introduce the whole concept to you all would be best than to come with, well, we have this idea that we're gonna do, outdoor storage.
So Josh, I think that's the new part of this whole thing, is saying that he's a new client to Sunnyvale with a new idea about making our system more streamlined, in the sense that he's not wanting to put 3 different things. There's 3 things underneath the same.
Right, so the precedent then is if you take use
Well, I
money to get permission to, then just combine them all together.
No, I think we should
I'm
be
just
careful
concerned
about
about that precedent.
but I don't think we set precedent here, because obviously if we did, we wouldn't have any problem we have now. We clearly don't set precedent, we change our mind in any given month.
Well, we don't, it's not a precedent-setting thing, and the criteria is it new, is it innovative? Applicant says it's not. To me,
It's new and innovative for Sunnyvale.
For the
It's not the newest property idea on the planet, but, you know, when I sat down with staff, which my compliments on your staff, they do an extraordinary job now, I think. But we filed for PD for a couple of reasons. Number one, and I've talked to your development director for like 3 different development directors in 15 years, and they said, believe it or not, tractor trailer storage is not allowed in industrial. And it was in the old town code. And sure enough, in the new town code, it still was not allowed in industrial. And I asked Rashad, I said, this does not make any sense. Why in the world would they limit that out of industrial? It makes all the sense in the world to be able to rent storage, slots for tractor trailer storage, bus and RV storage, whatever. And he says, well, they think that, the concept was that they felt like it would be one of those jet pilot type things. So it was allowed in freeway commercial. And I said, this isn't a gas station. It's not a 24 hours, always operating trucks and trailers going and coming, and it's not that kind of deal. And he said, well, we need to just make it really clear that it's not that kind of deal.
And Mr. Jackson, my understanding is that the 3 uses that you're applying for are permitted and have been permitted in the industrial use. My concern is that if you were just a normal applicant, you would say, pick any one of your 3 uses, right?
Mm-hmm.
Vehicle storage facility. We'd be able to look at that and see the specifics of what you want to do and be able to weigh them on its merits. My concern is that if you take 3 uses and combine them, that almost makes it easier to pass muster because we're combining them, we don't have that kind of time. And I'm concerned about abrogating our ability to be able to look specifically at each plan. More power to you, that you make 3 times the profit if you're using 3 different uses. I'm concerned about not being able to review those on its merit. Again, I believe the town council and the town made each one of those uses specific use for that specific reason so that we can review. That's all my concern is, not telling you no to the use of
Yeah,
all.
there were a couple of other reasons why Rashad Jackson said a PD is your best choice. And one of those is that we were wanting to deviate from the full concrete paving and go with the gravel. And this is inside Sunnyvale Center. It's more than 300 feet away from Clay Road. So we also, had a more mitigated landscape plan. I think that this size of site would require, I can't remember what it was some kind of national forest of 167 trees or something like that, when it's just really not necessary and frankly interferes and is cumbersome to the use that's requested. So there were 2 or 3 reasons why he suggested that a PD would be your best bet here. And like I say, the primary use is for Western Flyers to store trailers for their client, Marazzi Tile, across the street.
Right.
Any more questions from Mr. Jackson or Rich?
Just to clarify, the only thing that we have on that regarding the variation is just a sentence saying that you wanted to use aggregate gravel, crushed stone, and beside them. And so my only point is I just wish that as a commission we had more information on that to be able to make a more informed decision, which is why I think that as an SUD, let's look at it, let's approve it if it sounds like it's going to be a use that's permitted. As a PD, I'm concerned that we don't have sufficient information, and that's my only point.
Sir, thank you. We can continue. We have enough information.
Okay.
In the document here, it says the proposed PD standard.
Let me open the public hearing and
Oh, okay.
kind of get through some of this stuff here. Would anyone like to speak on this topic? I'll close the public hearing. Okay. So I think, Josh, I hear your point, and what I worry about is that we have someone approach the city, and Eric and Rashad do a good job of trying to, we have an impossible code to get people to want to come and build, but then we give them advice, and then as a commission, we don't stand behind our staff and say, your advice was not good. That's what we're saying, essentially that's what we're saying.
And go
Well,
back and go back 3 more times.
Look, I don't agree with that, but when we're talking about a bunch of trucks that are half a mile away from a, planned development here in the town, I would encourage us to proceed with a little bit more caution than what I think that we're doing right now. And so, yes, if that means that they need to come back with 3 applications because, not by us, because they have 3 different uses, I don't have a problem with doing that so that we can discharge our duty.
But I mean, we're gonna ask impossible questions like, how many times is truck in the slot 102 gonna leave and enter, and no one's gonna know the answer to that question. I mean, the number of trips we can't govern the number of trips. If he has a great business, isn't that good for his business?
I have no desire to ask the question that you just mentioned about how many
What
times
questions
the
do you
trucks
want? What questions do you want
What
answered?
is it? What do you not have?
I think that it would be inappropriate for any of us to state what we need to review. I mean, that's all laid out in the UDO. And all I'm saying is that we should be able to review that with more specificity.
Didn't he provide all the information that we need? I mean, what's missing? What do we not have? If we went by Mr. Sandler's desire to have 3 separate applications.
My only fear is that
I'm just saying,
You'll have to
what would be
present a
missing?
nine-
What do we not have that we would get if we did 3 separate applications?
possibly a little bit more detail on each of these, like Mr. Stanley was saying, these SUDs, exactly, for example, heavy machinery sales, will there be any of that, rental storage, or is it just gonna be storage, or is it just gonna be sales? So I guess
answered those questions.
he has,
Okay.
I think the UDO makes it hard because then it would be calling upon us to process an application request and for him to explain each of these separately. And
It's
then-
almost having to process them like a partial portion of it, because you're not getting the big picture, you're
Yes.
getting a piece and then another piece.
But I do
and
understand,
another
Mr.
piece.
Sandler, we did require this to be an SUD because we have concerns about each of these things, so.
Well, it seems to me that all these 3 things just kind of go together. They're kind of natural.
We also went a little crazy when sometimes we say we want these SUDs, but then we realized it would make sense in this section. And again, Judd, I understand your point too. I just don't know. I feel like sometimes we make it so hard. We gotta support the staff and their job, and I don't know what else I'd ask about. I mean, we've been through this truck thing a lot. It's not the first. We talk about trucks, but every time someone wants to park a truck or rent a truck, or we talk about how many trucks there are. I mean, I just don't know. At what point do we finally say someone wants to use a good portion of land? It seems like they want to do a good job, and he doesn't want to put $3 million of the concrete up there. It makes sense to me. I mean, everything seems to make sense.
And there's not fueling, I mean, they're not going to be
I don't
fueled,
think
so
he
you're not going
wants
to
to
be having
create some sort of
outsider.
CD. And I don't think he wants to create some sort of CD truck stop area. No one wants that.
Well, they have to have some protection because people are storing their stuff there,
I
right?
think that we work a lot of hours on trying to get a plan that we can hold up and say this is the standard. If we're not willing to do that, then that's the precedent. And so in this case, it may be somewhat annoying to applicants, but I guarantee you, as soon as this thing comes up, people are going to complain, and you have truly no idea how loud you can hear it probably from Clay Road, all the other.
Hey, I hear all kinds, and generally it's just which way the wind is blowing. I hear the traffic off 80, and especially in nice, cool
But I hear
nights
a
like
Southwest
tonight.
thing go over my house, and I'm going to
And you're gonna hear them.
And so-
I mean, if it was a truck stop, I think we would.
I hear the
have-
train whistle a mile away.
Me too.
And so all I'm saying is that let's just follow the rules. But
And I don't necessarily think we're not.
Okay.
I mean, I think that comes to a legal opinion that I don't think we are qualified to give as
Page
commissioners.
2, midway down, proposed PD standards and variations. The application is seeking to establish a business with multiple uses which will otherwise requires an SUD. The 3 things are heavy machinery sales, rental, storage, and repair, contractor storage, yard, and vehicle storage facility. Each would require an SUD. You want to put those in one PD. He's also asking for a variation with, and I made it up, permeable surfaces, which is great, because we are having flooding issues all here, all over the world. permeable
It's only gonna
surfaces are
get
great.
worse.
Yeah,
because
there's so many variations,
Right.
and SUDs ask for that.
Now, if he wants to come in and do an art gallery, an antique shop, an airport,
Gas
anything
station.
else, he'd have to get an SUD. It's not permitted under this PD, right? So
Uh,
he would still have to come in and get a,
Like, for instance, in the convenience store.
Anything other than
they-
these
that
two?
wouldn't- Yes. So there's a lot of, like I said, a lot of uses in here that maybe some other cities would see, and that they would allow it in industrial, because industrial in planning is known as the most, I don't know the right word, but excessive loudest use, if you will. So a lighter use, so to speak, would be allowed there almost. So a lot of these, you would see another, you can see there's outdoor storage all over.
But to Josh's point,
That we haven't
but
given.
But not
rather
here.
than come in with 3 SUDs, y'all the staff recommended that they come in.
That we consolidate them in one, and this is
I just
somewhat
want to know
unique.
what other questions we need to ask. I don't know any questions, because I wouldn't even know.
Let me specify one last thing, and I'm happy to relinquish the issue. If you have an SUD that talks about, for this application, heavy machinery sales, which would be part of the application as an SUD, I expect we'd have more people here on the public comment issue
Yes.
than the way this is presented. So again, my thought is if we're going to pass this, and it may very well pass by way of an SUD, I suspect it probably will, but let's make sure that we're doing it correctly. That's all.
So the public that would be here for the heavy machinery sales, what would they ask? They would say, like,
Yeah, what were their concerns?
how much?
Be the same concerns that people voiced regarding council and the other issues. We want to hear their concerns and weigh it and take it significantly. I'm not sure that the PD as it states here gives an individual indication as to what even we're doing here.
It
Like
went
I
out
said,
to
I promise
budding
to
property.
relinquish this, so I won't say it.
I understand.
No,
It
no,
went
I
out to all
think
the
you're
budding
you're a smart
property
guy, but
owners.
I'm just saying, councils, I mean,
That's
people will
different.
worry about their backyard becoming a parking, a driveway, a freeway. I mean, and honestly, we actually made it better for them. I mean, they're just thinking through in an emotional situation. My point is here is I don't know exactly what questions I would want to know about heavy machinery sales. Because I don't sell heavy machinery, don't know anything about. But I do know that if a person has a concern, we should get the concern out so that we know, and maybe he has an idea.
And this did go out to budding property owners,
No, but
and the difference in this and Hounsville is, of course, that the budding property owners are residential versus the
Just
school.
because people don't read the town, we should look out for those citizens. I want to get the point out. Like, what question do we want to ask of this gentleman about heavy machinery sales that would change ideas?
I don't know, I think.
I'm afraid it's really just, I don't want a truck there, not one truck at all.
By me saying I don't know, it's not that I don't know, I'm just hesitant to articulate a list of things that we want to see, because again, I'm concerned about the residential value of that. However, I am not comfortable with the 2 sentences regarding the variations. We usually deal with more specificity. And I'm not trying to be a flamethrower here in this regard, I just want to make sure that we're careful about this process.
Well, this phrase, heavy machinery sales, rental, storage, and repair is in our own,
That's our own
that's our own
language.
language, which, if you and Rashad were helping him, advising him, you probably picked that out.
If you go and you read in the UDO, each of them has definitions of what these uses are.
So,
When we discussed this with him, it seemed that these designations were the ones that encompassed all of the different uses.
well, I have enough information.
Okay, go ahead. Or not.
It's not going to be me.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I recommend approval of the request by David Jackson, the Jackson Company, to change the town zoning map from industrial to industrial plan development, Sunnyvale Center Truck Service and Park at or about 326-330 Clay Road.
I second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Moss, second by Ms. Mitchell. All in favor? All opposed? Was 5 to 1, opposition being Mr. Sandler. Moving on, number 4, hold a public hearing to consider the act upon request by Joe Duncan to approve an SUD for the establishment of alcoholic beverage sales on premises of Kearney's Feed Store, 3602.
We just go ahead and vote on that one.
Yeah, I just said. And we we should go there now.
I know, how quickly can we?
Is he not here to talk? Or he left?
I'm sorry, I don't know why it's not showing. Yeah, he doesn't appear that the applicant's present. Yeah.
We have Nance Road.
To be, perfect, given some, he's dealing with one of his restaurants
Okay.
burned down, and I know there's been a lot going on. It's one restaurant's under construction
Why
right
don't you
now.
give us the lowdown, Eric?
What was
Is there anything else you want to add?
Oh, yes, I don't know why this won't,
It's okay, we can read your stuff here.
yeah, it won't turn, but let me go ahead and go through. Applicant has submitted an application requesting SCD to allow for the sale of alcoholic beverages. This will be for on-site consumption only. Such property is owned local retail. Specific uses are those which generally compatible with the permitted land uses in a given zoning district, but which require individual review of their location, design, configuration, and the imposition of conditions in order to assure that the appropriateness of the use at a particular location within a given district. The establishment will be a restaurant with revenues from the sale of alcohol not to exceed 50%. Subject property lies south of Kellymore Paints. Let me go ahead and do this one more try to bring it up here.
Yeah, we know where it is.
That's okay, everyone knows.
We know where it is.
Yeah.
South Kellymore Paints.
Anything on this, there'll be this place.
Yes,
We've been by it a few
It's
times.
the old Kearney Feed Store.
yes, yes, it is, gentlemen. And ma'am, all the
All you
can't
people.
pluralize that. But public notice was sent out in the town's official newspaper on the 27th of last month. One was returned in favor, none were turned in opposition. This will be for the sale of on-site consumption. It'll be our first applicant to see since the passage of the alcohol sales. So if y'all have any questions, please ask.
Can we open the public hearing? Does anyone want to speak on this topic? Or is the applicant here? I guess we'll say no. Open the public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on the topic? Ma'am?
Not wanting to speak.
No, I'm good.
I'll close the public hearing. Commission?
I know what kind of restaurant it is and what kind of alcohol they're going to be serving. No,
I don't
We
know.
spoke about the
Yeah.
restaurant.
We
What
haven't-
kind of barbecue?
Yeah, it's like he runs the, he said it would be out of the.
Baker's Ribs.
Baker's Ribs,
Is what
that's
he
right.
owns right now.
beer.
Right.
On one of the renderings we had of the elevations, it said Kearney's Beer Garden. Now, he's not required to tell us his menu or anything for it, but he will have outdoor seating.
He said a bar and beer and wine.
You said like a bar?
No, I mean, I think he meant like.
What will make
No
you
jokes
vote
from
no?
this, no jokes from this, bitch, I'm just curious.
Not to exceed 50%.
But the attorney's really concerned over here.
No, I am good, I just like to know.
Yeah.
No, I meant
We
this-
made
I
it
think it's
into
important.
an
The question
SUV
is-
so we could review it in full, and we did put the stipulation that they can't exceed 50% to sort of keep a restaurant.
So it can't just be a bar.
Can't just be 100%, no, it
Well,
can't.
truly, without knowing if it's hard liquor, that's a big one for me. I mean, we need to
Versus
know-
beer and wine only?
Absolutely.
We can't regulate the menu, can we?
Their application from TABC is for mixed beverage as well as beer and wine.
Then I would
So
So
assume
yes.
their intention is probably a full bar, which is,
And our SUV for alcohol doesn't specify beer only or?
No, it doesn't.
it's just alcohol, right?
So if you guys want to make that stipulation, that's something.
No. We want them to succeed. and-
50% of alcohol.
Wait a second. I'm Mr. Popularity, but, so we don't want to even think about specifying if it's gonna be hard liquor or not?
But I don't, we can't control
I
that.
don't think that,
What's
Well,
the
Mr.
license?
That's not specified in our.
I know, I don't see how we can do that.
Well, can we legally?
I think it's licensed by their,
Um,
you know,
Yeah,
It's
see,
legally, they can have mixed beverage and beer and
yeah,
wine
it's the state
sales.
that decides that.
Yeah.
We didn't, this is
Can we
a little,
specify legally or no?
I don't know.
Assuming that we want to or not want to, we just want,
Yeah.
can we even do that?
I mean, we specify things on other applications that they do. I can't answer for Mr. Dodd, our attorney, whether that's, we can, when it's allowed by, you know,
if it's allowed by licensure, out of a bunch of different licenses, the cities that I have businesses in do not regulate my business. The licensure regulates what I can or cannot do under that license. And if he has a mixed use or mixed
Beverage, yeah.
beverage license, that's what covers it. And they regulate him, not us.
And
our
ours-
city agreed to,
Alcohol.
agreed to alcohol, and so if he's.
Does alcohol mean all alcohol, any alcohol?
That's
No,
how
it
was.
does, it goes into specifics about what qualifies as a beer,
Oh,
mixed
really?
beverage, yes.
So we can specify that if we can.
But that's from TABC's,
Not
we
us,
adopted
them.
their regulations and put it in our code.
Right, so I think that the distinction is regulation as opposed to who's gonna monitor it as opposed to putting
And
that
it's
as
not us.
supervision.
Josh,
And it
what's your
won't be
concern?
us.
Yeah, why do we want to?
It goes into that,
I'm, a little concerned.
Their state, that licensure will determine what they can, do in that facility.
Right.
Sure, what's this, I mean, if you
So
guys
my
have
concern
concerns,
is, yeah, no, my
Well,
concern is with the rate of
the regulation.
intoxication, and how quickly one can get intoxicated by a few old fashions as opposed to a few beers, that's all.
Yeah,
But according to the Texas Alcohol Commission, they stop serving when they're drunk.
No, no,
Whether you
I
have
think-
a dozen
I don't think
beers
that's
or
our-
three.
Mr. Sanders is a smart guy.
Three-
If he has
three
concern, he
straight
should just
shots.
hear it, I think
That's it.
whether it's, whether
I
it's.
agree, and, you
It's
want
definitely
to know
concern.
what they're serving, and they're not, just,
I didn't say I wasn't gonna vote for it, I just wanna know because.
No, I think that's a
that
good
matters,
point.
you know?
yeah.
The question is,
We all, I think all.
do we have any way of, and I would be very concerned if we had any way of eliminating that. And
Yeah,
if we have any questions, should we table this?
I just,
I don't think.
I
feel like
don't
I should
see how
equalize
we
it.
can.
No, but I mean, my question is it
Because the-
important to us as a group of people right now to, one, do we want more information? Like if they all of a sudden said, I'm gonna, yes, you can do, if the lawyer says, yes, you can do this, it's very sticky, but yes, you can do this, and you might entail 17 years of bad luck,
And
lawsuits,
litigation.
or that's what we need, I think that's what we need to decide.
It certainly seems like the less litigious way to do this is to be concerned about our alcohol. Yes?
Just have the cops post themselves right
We have
outside
different
attorneys.
practices.
But I think,
I'm like, I have the
I think
solution for
given
that.
I think given the message that one is we're a city that like,
I can sort of see that.
we want to be a city of, I think we want to be a city that respects common sense and, proper utilization of, I mean, Curry's Feed Stores, when he came, he meant to be a restaurant. He meant to sell barbecue and liquor or whatever, beer. I think we start
I
saying
think
like,
right off
well,
the bat, if we start limiting that, that's not going to be helpful
No.
for future restaurants that we want.
he isn't here, do we have a good reason why he's not
Yeah.
coming?
I don't,
are they required to be here?
technically, the applicant must be present for your application to be heard, that's what we always.
Well,
Then
rules,
let's-
guys, rules are meant to be broken.
Yeah,
I know he's, one of his locations burned down, and I know that's happened, but, I don't know, he's had a lot of things going on, this restaurant's under construction right now. But then again, if you all like to table it, we can get clarification on whether we can restrict to beer and wine only.
I don't
If
really
we're
wanna
going
restrict
to
it.
table it, it should be tabled because there's some sort of agenda rule or breaking.
Yeah.
If not, then
yeah, it's,
Can we
I
make a
agree.
stipulation that Ms. Mitchell represent all the dram shop issues
All-
instead?
We have somebody in my firm that does that, so
No,
I'll
no,
definitely
but
take
but
that.
seriously, should we table it because he's not here?
I-
Do we set a bad
I
precedent?
feel
That's
like
what-
we should, maybe that's why we
I
should table it.
think it probably, he thought it was pretty self-explanatory.
It is.
But did he know he had to be
That's why he's
here?
not here. But he didn't know he had this guy ask the question.
Sorry. But I mean, but if the rule says that you have to be here to hear your application, and he's not here.
Where is that rule?
Yeah.
I can't cite that, but that,
If it's just our practice, but
It's
it's
our-
not, if
Is that
it's
our
not
practice?
I believe it's
stated in
more
their
practice. I can't say whether it's.
if we haven't advised him that he has to be here,
Have we
Then-
advised on it?
It seems like over the
He's
years.
been before us.
Yeah, I was gonna say-
People
We
not
send
sure,
I
out
feel
letters
like, yeah.
stating that your case is going to be heard.
particularly school.
Is it stated you're required to be here or
I-
will be? Yeah.
I'm not sure, I can look into the
if
ADL.
it's not stated, I think it's not fair to hold that standard.
Yeah.
All the information is submitted in a package to us, whatever, the last few times he's
They
come,
could just void
he
it
hasn't
if
had-
It really is inappropriate.
Yeah, if
They
we
could
do
just void
something
it,
inappropriate,
right?
then it would be inappropriate.
They
Well,
would
it's
just,
gonna go before the
they would
town
just make us
council.
redo it.
Yes.
So I
this
think,
still
I
has
agree,
to
I
be-
mean, I think we
It'll
go
still go
forward
to
and
town
then let
council.
the
And
other
if he
people
doesn't
figure
Yeah,
it out.
we're merely just offering our advice to town council, really, honestly.
Yeah.
They're the ones-
That's, I know, they make the ultimate decision.
Yeah, yeah.
Why are we
Does it
even
really-
here?
does it
Let's
really
just go have
matter?
a beer here.
I know,
Or
Does
some hard
anyone,
liquor.
does anyone make a motion on this? Or does anyone want to table it or not talk or?
I want to not talk.
I make a motion to approve Joe Duncan's request for the specific use designation for an establishment with alcohol beverage sales use at the Kearney Feed Store at or about 3602 North Beltway.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Ms. Daniel, second.
Sorry, I jumped again.
You preempting the vote?
Second, I want Eric to get mad at me.
Anxious.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. All in favor?
I'm figuring we do
I appreciate Mr. Pease, he's been really good at officiating. I wouldn't want
I
to.
learned from Ken, like, Ken's got some,
He does. He's good.
I'll adjourn the meeting at 8:33. Ken's got some questions, he stirs up here, and you're like, huh,
I
where did that come
know.
from?
He knows a lot of stuff, like
Yeah.
just random,
He's like the
From-
he's like the Josh of construction, you know?
He
Just
is.
knows about construction.
right? The Josh of construction.
Tell Ken you call it.
No, that's a compliment, honestly, because I think Ken has a lot of wise things to say. I learned a lot from that guy. For the last 6 years, he always asks these questions like, Sarah's the parking, the traffic czar. I don't know if I get.
That's right. Hey, if I can get that light, I was like, I'm just gonna raise it a few more
Yeah,
times.
just have Ken sign next time.
Give the
Okay,
attention
yeah,
of the
it's
school
on me.
district.
Yeah, I agree
We've
with
already-
you there,
That
because
is-
before with stop sign, you could stop and turn.
I know.
Now you can't.
It's honestly, it's just, it makes no sense to have a stoplight and a turn lane and no turn
There
signal.
definitely is.
And it drives me crazy. And I talked to Kevin Clark on town council. He's like, oh yeah, they were supposed to put a left-hand turn signal in and they just didn't. And I'm like, then why can't we fix that now?
So coming out of Council,
That's okay.
you can't make a left turn?
He-
No, I think dogs.
Actually, I don't think they stream our stuff this time. It's too fun.
I'll try.
Seriously.
No,
Drama.
we want one, you want one.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I mean,
What's wrong with you?
I just don't understand why they don't put it where they're supposed to. It was even
In
supposed
the
to.
other room and the other.
Yeah, you guys are hardcore.
Well,
Yeah,
because
but,
somebody
she's
came
doing
up.
one.
Sounds like they're still sleeping.
Yeah, so that's why. I mean,
So the class, he probably realizes this already, is the education is not dictated by the class, right? I mean,
Be on my feet.
it's your school, it's she skipped the grade, it's got math grade, and it's sharper than it. They don't, I mean, that's not good for every kid, like, it's not good for my son, but they move all the fluff all the line. And watching my kids, that stuff, they waste your school, they give me science and math, it's really, because honestly, some kids really do, I mean, some kids function, some kids need more fluff, they need the P class, or they need the time. For my whole life, I was against, it's not my curriculum. I see her flourishing.
Well, they got, like you said, personality.
They still.
And now I know why parents put their kids in this Montessori are very class, so they can kind of get it on track. That's really right. It's all his own track. Yeah, well, everyone says that, right? Everyone says, my kids make those challenge, but then you move here for the whole school, so you kind of like.
I made them in school.